this a second. Huh. Let's see, gotta change this. 25. Description, save. Should have done that before, but I think we're okay. Let's go to double check that the stream's actually showing. And we are. Okay. What is up, everyone? I am coming at you with a very short stream. Got home kind of late tonight, but I wasn't able to stream last night because I was editing the first Divine's start deck opening. All of them have been recorded already. They're all actually right here. And I am actually just taking a break from editing. I wanted to make some stuff with with the deck that I had already posted up. So I'm going to do that tonight for an hour, and then maybe later on in the week I'll do a longer stream. But I got to wake up early tomorrow, so figured I'd do a little bit because this is a lot more enjoyable than editing. So it's going to do this. Alright, so first thing we got to do is take out the cards that we know we're going to be using. Yeah, that'll make things a little bit easier. And yeah, we can start building whatever it is this is going to end up being. I have a couple of ideas of what I want to try doing with this deck. Don't know if it's going to work at all, but just wanted to get my hands on Triumph Dragon first before anything else. So let's see. We've got all 4 copies of Triumph, which is nice. I really wish that Bushy would have at least given us like a single R foiling of 1 copy of this, kind of like what they used to do with the old trial decks, where it was 1 triple R foil, or no, 1 double R foil. Actually, it wasn't even triple R foil. 1 double R foil card and 1 single R foil card. And yeah, we did get sleeves. We got a nice deck box, but I would have rather had the bling on the in-game aspect of the package instead of the accessories to it. But whatever, that's fine. So as for the deck itself and what we are going to try doing, this doesn't even come with an OT. I just realized. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're just going to figure out the main direction of the deck, get it into some sleeves. I'm not going to put them in the Triumph Dragon sleeves yet because I don't have any outer sleeves, and I don't want to damage the new sleeves right away. So we're going to just be using some test sleeves. But I'll leave the Elementaria out for now. But yeah, we're gonna need all of these. Okay. So we got the 3 other copies. Of course, we need 4 PGs, guys. We can't have a deck nowadays without 4 PGs. And then triggers. I'm thinking we forgo fronts. We forgo the fronts. Actually, we'll have to. I actually want to check what the new support for this does. But for now, we're going to just go off of what is currently available. So I just got to go through bulk and find stuff to put in this thing. One card that I know that I want to add in here is a double R from forgot what set exactly, but I know it's what is it called? It's a generic double R card. I think it's called Desolate Spark Dragon. And there it is. Okay, so we got 3. That's fine. There isn't very much in terms of wiggle room for what is good in this deck, at least from the card pool that I've read through so far. Not looking super great for us in terms of high rarity support outside of like the generic stuff that's put in everything. But then at that point, are we playing the deck or just playing generic support cards? So I'm trying to find a way for us to get a little bit of spice in the deck. I originally thought maybe I could try something with the overdress stuff, but it doesn't look like it's very compatible. So I've had to scrap that thought. What does this do? Counterblast 1 and perform. No, we have battle phase retiring, so that's not going to work. I'm just going through. Uh-oh. Dropped some stuff. Oh, just dropped a thing. Just that one guy. But fine. This is kind of as far as I got earlier today when I was theory crafting in my head what I wanted to do with this stuff. Yeah, let's just keep going through the piles of stuff that I have collecting dust here, and maybe we'll find something that we can use here. Discard an arms. No, it's not very useful. But then put on like card from hand. This unit, no. Oh, I need to take this out actually. Right, next pile of stuff. No Dragon Empire stuff over there. When it hits draw, it doesn't really help that. I mean, I guess we'll just put it into the pool of stuff that we've found, and then we can weed out the bad stuff later, or the worst stuff later. Retire in +2. No, that's not very useful. Hit this turn, use +10k. No. If your opponent has to, I guess that's okay. It's kind of for lack of other decent generic support, I guess. Or maybe I can run that one Gandiva thing. That one Gandiva. I think it's like a single R or something. Just keep going through. Oh, there's my prism stuff. There's my other Elementaria. Conflagelon. Yeah, I only got 2 copies of this guy, but might as well toss him in. Taxer boost for each +2k for each card in your bind zone. Yeah, we can try running 4. There's nothing that self binds here, but I'm confident in our ability to jank something together that would make this somewhat somewhat interesting to play. Let's see here. Ooh, okay, I need to put these away because I know I'm going to be using this for the term stuff. No. Nothing there. Nothing. Just ones. Nope. 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 Place on rear. Put a grade 3 that was in the ride deck from soul or drop. Place up. Draw a card. Actually, we could do. We could run this. Yeah. Find something to do with that. I think, because it is a draw, and we know that we're going to be persona riding for sure with this deck. So at least it's a draw for a counterblast when you place it. Not great, not great, but yeah, we'll we'll figure something out. Nope, can't use that. What's in here? Okay, nothing that I can use. What can we put in this deck that doesn't suck? Nope. Nope. Yeah, nope. Okay. This huge stack here has a bunch of stuff that's not useful. Oh, Oh, this card's outer dress. Guess when this unit attacks, use one of your opponent's vanguards in this. What? Choose one of your opponent's vanguards in this unit gets plus 2k for each grade of that unit. No. I don't know if we can make a decent enough engine to get that to work. Yeah, I'm not seeing a way that we can do that consistently. Or at least, what do you call it? Efficiently enough for it to be worth the cost of jumping through the hoops to do it. Because I have tried shoot, what's it called? I have tried Eugene crossover dress, and it is fun. I like it, but it does take quite a bit of quite a few dominoes to fall in the right place to get it to work. And so I don't know with this that whether it would work or not either. And I feel like with Triumph Dragon we'll have even less chances of being able to get that to go off properly. Because the nice thing about Eugene and crossover dress is that Eugene can call your Praetor Dragons to the field off of his Soul Blast 5 ability. But yeah. What else do we have? What else can we run? It doesn't make sense to run Tencha Steads because we're already auto persona riding. Let's see. I don't know I forgot what's in here. So let's just go through it. Plus 5k. No. Oh, these are really old. This beginning of format old. Nope, not as old anymore. Nope, we're back to being old. Place from hand, choose a card from your opponent's bind zone, you put it at the bottom of the deck, you may not choose up to one card, so bind zone quality. No, okay, can't use that. Ravania is not very useful, but we could toss these guys in. Static cracks are fine, I guess. I need to go through the other piles because I know that I saw static cracks there as well. But I don't know how well this deck does anymore. Because, yeah, it's just kind of a bunch of hodgepodge pieces put together, but what can we do? Counterblast 2, Soul Charge 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. Nah. When your opponent's rear guards are trying to retire, choose a unit card from among them. Call for the rest. Top deck only. Not great. We can try running tri-bashes. Because who doesn't like 3 crits off of 1 Vanguard attack, huh? Right? We're playing modern day armor break. Except we can still get PG'd. Yeah, not useful. Not useful for the cost. Nothing good. Nothing. No. Go through this stuff now. Nope. Let's see. Nope, that's Eugene specific, Nirvana specific, an original dress card. Wait, what does it do? CB2. 1 overdress unit gets an extra crit till end of turn. That'd be fun to throw one of into a Nirvana deck. I don't know. Let's take Hungersaurus. Why not? I have nothing better to put in right now. Because Latifah's not great. I have the 2 cyclers, but I only have 2 copies of that, so I can't even run a playset. Nothing. And welcome to everybody who's dropping by, whether it's live or just through the replay. I appreciate you dropping by and spending some of your time with me as I stress out about how I have no idea what to put into this deck. Nothing. Yeah, we're definitely not getting... Okay, I need to remember where these are. I'm going to put those away too. I think I only got 1 copy of each of those though, which kind of sucks because I know I didn't need more. That's a prison card. No. Oh my gosh. Nope, 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 nothing. Okay. So this is tray 2 of 3. So I'm just gonna get the final tray, and hopefully we get some more stuff that we can toss into this hodgepodge pile of dragons. Okay. Final stack. I don't know where to put this though. Let's see what's in here. And intercepts, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets plus 10k shield until end of turn. That's actually really nice. I'm just going to toss it in there because we have no better options right now. Let's see. If Zola is a grade 3. What set's that from? DBTO 5. It's all bad timing. Timings don't match. Put into soul. Attack hits a vanguard. During your turn, this unit gets 10k if your opponent's front row here. No. Cannot use this place if you have 2 or more. Nope. Nope. And Tenchesteads again. Nope. Nope. Huh. It's hard to choose what to put when the choices aren't great. I don't have very much that's useful. Okay, if we got more Tri-Bashes, that should be 4. Place on rear, this is gonna 5 thing. Put this into soul. I guess we play this where there's nothing else that I can use, if I'm being completely honest. Let's see. No, and nothing there. Next. This unit attacks a boost Soul Blast 1. And this unit gets 5k for each of your other grade 1 or less rear guards. I mean, I don't have anything else to put in here, so let's do it. When you stand by your card's ability, retire, draw a card. No one restands. This is a 3 attack deck. Nope. Nope. I just need to find more Shehabs. Let's see. Can we find any more Shehabs? I know that I swear I know I have a play set somewhere. What cards are those? These are this is Card Fight Vanguard. It's a Japanese TCG, as are most of them. But yeah, it's very. I find it very fun. I know that a lot of people say that say otherwise, but I really enjoy this game. Let's see. And welcome to the stream, Elijah Jones. Nice to have you for the time that you'll be here. Just looking through cards right now that I potentially want to put in this. Ooh, wait a minute. Where do we counter blast? How do we countercharge? How do we countercharge? I know I have 4 Silent Crows. Great, now I gotta look for the Silent Crows. Oh. Some more special intercepts. No. Not good. I'm like 100% sure that I have 2 more Midnight Crows somewhere. Just gotta find them. Oh, I found the other 2 Shehabs. Awesome. Okay, and then I've seen this game before, but I don't think I've played it before. It's if you are planning to get into it, it actually kind of is a pretty good time right now, because this is actually what do you call it? This is the new wave of trial decks that dropped for the new season of the anime. So arguably though, the community is hating on these sets because they're expensive and they don't give you very much in terms of like practical usage outside of like the main cards. Um, but it does set you up with a starting deck, albeit completely ability free, except for uh, I guess you would call it deck master or boss unit, and one card that we call perfect guards or sentinels. But I think I'm done looking through this stuff for now. I know that I said I was going to pick some stuff out again from a pile that I went through already, but let's just see where we are right now. And if we still need to do some other stuff, then we're going to do that other stuff, but just want to double check. Alright, so let me just get all this stuff sorted out. So I'm going to get all the same cards into piles so I know how many of what I'm working with. All the great ones here, all the green ones, all these. And then if you're planning on sticking around, Mr. Elijah Jones, I can walk you through what these cards do and what they mean and what all the symbology means. Okay. Grade 2s. Oh, that's a grade 1. Let's put that there for now. Put those together. And then the grade 3s. And then this can just stay away for now. Alright, so when building a deck in Vanguard, there are a couple of requirements that you need to meet. The first thing, especially when we're playing standard format, is that you have your ride deck. So your ride deck is a separate zone from your main deck that basically guarantees the units or the units, the creatures, the monsters, whichever game you're coming from. Those are sort of the interchangeable terms, but it guarantees the things that you will be using as your main unit throughout the game, which is your Vanguard. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the new trial decks came with completely abilityless cards outside of the main boss unit, which is our Serpentine Dragon over here. But when the first set for Divine Z comes out, all of these will be getting ability versions of themselves in that first booster set, which is really weird. I don't know why they did it like that, but that's just how the cookie crumbled for this format, or for this leg of the format. But yeah, so this is the first thing that you need. You need your ride deck. And then you'll also need your energy generator crest. So this is a new mechanic. It's like an upkeep mechanic almost. You gain an energy count every turn, and it just keeps going. So it's a non-interactable resource in terms of being able to meddle with your opponent's resources, because one thing in this game that has happened, or one strategy that has happened in this game, is some players like to stall games out by minimizing the amount of what their opponent can do throughout their turn. And the energy counter, or the energy mechanic, sort of bypasses that, because this is it's constant and it doesn't stop. We don't have any decks in the format that do anything to reduce energy count. I feel like we're going to get one as like the main antagonist or something later down the line. But yeah, for now, as it stands, it is a constant resource through the game that you're able to use to activate abilities of cards. And the main grade 3 of the deck, or the main boss unit of the deck, uses this mechanic to do its stuff. And then, yeah, so that is it for the first sort of set of requirements for building a deck. And we've already put that away. Next is the main deck. Now, the main deck consists of 2 to 3 types of cards, depending on the type of deck you're playing. We have our black bottom cards here, and these are called normal units. So as you can see here, the bottom of the card is black. And these are units that we call to the field that, that attack, defend, and can also do other sort of field interactions. And the ability scope of each card really depends on the nation that it comes from. So if you're coming from a game like Magic, for example, each color sort of has its own play style. It's sort of the same thing with the nation gimmick of Vanguard, where each nation or each color code, so this is Dragon Empire, obviously, full of dragons, and they have a specific way of playing. All their decks sort of have some kind of tangential gimmick or theme that sort of ties them all together. And there are other nations that have different aesthetics and different play styles that that sort of reflect the units that are in them. So these are our normal units, again, units that we call to the field to fight for us, basically. And then we also have trigger units that are sort of distinct from normal units by having the yellow background, as well as having the trigger icon on top. So there are historically 6 types of triggers, but in this standard format we have 5, that being the critical trigger, the heal trigger, the draw trigger, the front trigger, as well as a trigger type that is exclusive, well, not exclusive, but was released in standard, that does flow over to other formats, but we have the over trigger, which you're only allowed to have 1 copy of in your deck at a time. Now, there is a limit to the number of triggers that you can have in your deck, and it is 16, so the fact that I'm trying to add an over trigger here sort of makes this illegal. So I'm going to take out 1 front trigger here and replace it with my over trigger. So each trigger does something different. So the critical trigger adds to the amount of damage that your opponent takes when their Vanguard is attacked. So the game of Vanguard is basically punch your opponent until they hit 6 damage before you do, and critical triggers make that a lot faster because they can end games very quickly. Yeah, this is your sort of main knockout power in some cases. The next type of trigger is the front trigger. So all triggers give an extra 10,000 power to any unit of your choosing on your field. The front trigger gives a blanket 10,000 power to everything that is in your front row at the time of activation. So the field of Vanguard is set up into 3 lanes. So you have your Vanguard in the middle, you have your rear guards, you have your 2 front row rear guards, and then you get 3 circles in addition to those in the back. And these units are usually our support units that distribute their power or contribute their power to the front row units when they attack. And there are certain limitations to what can't boost and what can or can't attack, and it usually is card to card, but when it comes to grade, I'll get into that a little bit later. I don't want to flood right away because we're talking about the triggers. But yeah, so if I had 3 units in the front here and I checked a front trigger, all of the units here would get an extra 10,000 power. The next trigger that we have are draw triggers, and draw triggers, from the name, let you draw an extra card upon activation, and that's pretty nice. And then we have our heal triggers. These are our these are our answered prayers. And basically, if you activate a heal trigger and you have equal or more damage than your opponent, you are able to heal 1 point of damage to get yourself away from dying in the game very as quickly as you would be without it. So, for example, if I check a critical trigger, a heal trigger, and I have 3 damage, and my opponent has 3 damage, I can heal 1 back down to 2 damage, and then I'd be ahead. Or if I had 4 damage, my opponent had 3 damage, or 5 damage, my opponent had 3 damage, I can heal 1. But as soon as I have less damage than my opponent, then it becomes just an extra 10,000 power to something on the field. And then, of course, the over trigger. The over trigger, there's a reason that there's only 1 allowed in each deck, because when it does happen, if you check it, if you check an over trigger at the right time, it can steal games, and people hate it. I love it because I just like being entertained one way or another. But what this one does is just a very generic one. So all over triggers give a 100 million thousand power, 100 million K. What am I saying? 100 million power to whatever unit you choose, and then it removes itself from the game, and then you draw a card off the top of your deck after, and then they all have an extra ability, and this one just lets me give another unit 100 million. So basically, it's 200 million power distribution to whatever I have on my field. So I have set my triggers. I'm going to keep it at we're going to keep it a rainbow for now. Yeah, so rainbow triggers just means that I have a mix of all triggers in there. All of their trigger symbols are different colors, hence the name, hence the term rainbow. But I'm going to set this aside since I have 16 now. The main deck can only have 50 cards. It can't have less, and it cannot have more. And there are different grades to units, and we'll get into that now. I'll start with the grade ones, since it's easier to work down from the bottom up than it is to work from the biggest things down to the more minute details. So the grade ones are usually our support / utility units. They get a little bit of extra power, or they let us search the deck for cards, or yeah, just stuff along the lines of that. They're not going to win you the game in a lot of cases. There are some decks that do have very powerful grade ones, but right now, in our case, it's all utility. All utility and buffing the power. So in Vanguard, we deal in the thousands, and the smallest unit I've ever seen, I forgot. But generally, in Standard, the lowest number power unit you're looking at when you're fighting is 6,000, and then as we move up in grades, or basically like evolve our units, they get tankier and tankier. Okay, so grade ones have the ability to boost. It's really hard to see. Let me see if I can like do this very quickly. Nope, other way. Yeah, there we go. I'm getting there. There. Okay. So grade ones have a couple of icons here. So obviously grade 1 means that well, throughout the game you are limited to your Vanguard in terms of quite a few things. So sometimes abilities don't activate until somebody or both people are at grade 3. Sometimes what am I saying? Yeah, so there are sort of measures there, but it's I don't even remember where I'm going with this. It's so late. I'm very sorry, Mr. Elijah Jones. But we have our grade 1 here, and this is the grade, and basically every turn from the start of the game you go from grade 0 to grade 1 to grade 2, and then we sort of settle at grade 3. Some decks go up to grade 4, but not all of them do. But yeah, so grade 1s are the units that you'll have on the field almost, I go almost always the earliest, because those are the cards that you can call out earliest, since you cannot call rear guards that are a higher grade than your Vanguard. But yeah, this little icon here, let me see if I can get into focus there. This little icon here is the symbol for the boost ability. So this is shared by grade 1s and grade 0s. So triggers are grade 0s, and they have the same little boost icon here, which means that if I refocus the camera, if I have, for example, my Vanguard up in front here, I can put this card down in the back, and I would be able to contribute its power to my Vanguard's power. So just simulating an attack, I would choose the unit that I want to attack with and rest it or tap it, depending on which game you come from, or defense mode it, whichever game you're coming from. And it would have its own power value. So grade 3s in standard are generally 13k. There are exceptions to the rule, but generally you're going to be seeing 13k. And then the unit behind it can be used to boost. So basically you would take the printed number value here along with any bonuses that it has, and then add it to the attacking power of the unit that it is directly behind. So since you can have up to 3 lanes, you'll have 3 boosters and 3 attackers at most throughout the game. And yeah, so it would just be attack, declare attack, declare boost, and then same thing over here. Units, unless they have an actual ability that says that they can attack from the back row, can only boost from the back row. There are also abilities that let you move cards around a little bit more freely, but those don't exist in this deck. So that's kind of it here. As for what I want to put in the deck, the grade 3 generally does a lot of spot removal. So I want to add, let's see, I want to add, well, obviously I need to add these. These are sentinels. So when a unit attacks, you are required to guard the attack if you don't want to take damage, or if you don't want to lose a rear guard. The way that we know whether or not we're going to take damage or lose a rear guard is completely dependent on the attack target. So for example, if I had 3 units out, if this is my main unit or my Vanguard, and it would be attacked, if that attack were to go through, then I would take a damage, and I would be closer to losing. But if my opponent chose to attack a rear guard and I didn't guard it, it would simply just go to the drop zone or the graveyard. Or the graveyard, since most things are just called the graveyard outside of Vanguard. But yeah, that's how attacking and guarding works. But if I were to say, if I wanted to guard the attack, I would take the number of the power of the attacking unit. So for example, if my Vanguard is being attacked by, let's say, another grade 3 unit, I'm going to move these out a little bit. If my Vanguard were to be attacked by this unit, and it isn't being boosted, so it would just be 13 to 13, this attack would go through. So as long as the attack power is equal to or higher than the defensive power, it will automatically go through. Now, the way that we guard is by looking at the shield value that is on the side of our cards. So grade 0s have the highest shield value outside of draw triggers. And then grade 1s and grade 2s have a 5k shield value. So if I were to be attacked, 13 to my 13k, I could play a heal trigger down, and a heal trigger has a defensive value of 15,000, which would bring me up to 28,000. So this would keep me safe, but there is a risk if I'm being attacked by a Vanguard that I get beaten over by trigger activations. Now, I didn't talk about the trigger, how to do that, so we'll go into that now. So when a Vanguard attacks, it activates something called a trigger check. Now, from grade 0 to grade 2, you get to check one trigger, and the way that we do that is by declaring an attack with a Vanguard, choosing the target, waiting for our opponent to guard, and then checking the top card of our deck and revealing it to our opponent in the trigger zone of the field. If I hit a trigger, I can choose a unit to give power to and then activate any other trigger abilities. Or you could activate the trigger ability and then give the 10k. It doesn't really matter which order you do it, as long as you remember to do both, because sometimes you forget. So, I've forgotten. It's been a while since I've forgotten, but I have forgotten to activate triggers fully. So just make sure that you always do one and you always do the second thing. Okay, so if I were to hit this, and I could give this power to my Vanguard to help it get over guard values. So let's say I attack 13-13, my opponent throws a 5k shield at me. So instead of 13 to 13, it would be 13 to his 18. So I need to hit at least 18 to get over the guard. So I would do a drive check, and then I could give the power to my Vanguard, which gets it up to 23k. And that is obviously higher than 18k. So what would happen is the power would push over the guard value, and the attack would go through. Now, that is a single drive. So again, from grade 2 down to grade 0, we are using a single drive. At grade 3, their grade symbol is the twin drive ability. So when we attack with our grade 3 Vanguard, instead of just checking one trigger off the top, we're checking for a max of 2. And some cards gain extra drives on attack as well. So we can go up to 3. I have played against decks that get pentadrive and stuff like that. So it's and in more obscene formats, you can get up to 11 drive checks if you really wanted to try doing it. But generally, we are at 2. All right, so that is attacking, and now taking damage again. So we're going back to the first example where my Vanguard is being attacked by this unit. So 13 on 13, I don't want to guard it. Taking a damage check is almost the same thing as doing a trigger check, except where the card goes changes. So we would take the top card of our deck and reveal it, and we would activate any trigger abilities that happen, and then this would go to our damage zone. And then, like I said earlier, as soon as we hit 6 damage, 5, 6, the game is over. But there are benefits to having damage, and I'll kind of get into that later. But yeah, that is attacking, that is guarding, and that is taking damage. Another thing to sort of keep in mind if you are planning to give Vanguard a try is that we guard in intervals of 5,000 because of the lowest amount of shield that cards have. It's either 0 or 5,000, and obviously, so we're going to use 5,000, and triggers will have power go up in intervals of 10,000. So if I am being attacked 13 to 13, the super risky play would be to guard with just 5k, because one, all my opponent needs is one trigger to go through, and I would have wasted a card out of my hand that I could have used either more intelligently to guard, or later on in the game to be aggro with. And 2, he has twin drive at this point in the game. If he's grade 3, that means I'm banking that the top 2 cards of his deck do not have a single trigger. Now that is very risky, and which is why triggers are so important, because again, they guard in intervals of 15. Heal triggers are 15k shield, critical triggers are 15k shield, front triggers are 15k shield, but draw triggers are 5k shield. So the reason being is that it gets you an extra card in your hand as long as it's activated. But if you accidentally draw into it during your turn, like during anything that isn't a trigger check, it does become a bit of a bummer to just have in your hand not doing anything. But for example, if I'm being attacked 13 to 13 and I played a heal trigger instead of being basically a coin flip away from taking damage, I have a little bit more insurance because my opponent needs to get 2 triggers to get over me, because I'm at 28, and if he goes up in intervals of 10k each time, he can only get to a maximum of 33k from 13, because the max amount of triggers that he can pull is 2. And if he did hit 2, then he would be at 33. But if he only hits 1, he's only at 23. I'm at 28. I am safe for the rest of the turn. This is what we like to call a 2 to pass. So basically, your opponent needs 2 triggers to pass. Or, for example, if I wanted to really be safe, really be safe, I could put down 2 triggers, I get myself to 43, and put myself completely out of reach of my opponent being able to hit me with this attack through regular triggers only. This is what we call a no pass, because even if he gets 2 triggers, he's only at 33, I'm safe, I'm chilling at 43, there's nothing he can do. Or if it's early in the game and it hasn't been seen yet, we can call this an OT to pass, or an over trigger to pass, because that is the only way that this attack would potentially go through if we were to take it 13 to 43 in terms of attack to defensive power. Oh yes, and over triggers have a 50k shield value, so these are really helpful if you get them accidentally in your hand, but you do want to get that 100 million pop off. Now the way that over triggers work, so for example, I'm attacking this, I drive check the over trigger, it will activate its abilities, so I can give 100 million here, then 100 million here, it dissipates, it removes itself from the game completely, and then I draw a card after. And then I would go into a second drive check. But yeah, that is how the over trigger works. All right, I think, where'd the grade ones go? Okay, so I feel like I want to run the Silent Crows because the retire is every turn, so I know I'm going to be getting, I know I'm going to be retiring something as long as there's something on the field to retire. And Silent Crow will just let me draw a card for a Counterblast. Now, Counterblast is whenever we take damage, if it is face up, it is an open Counterblast. And a lot of these cards require that you Counterblast or take a face up card and turn it face down to activate their abilities. So this is one resource that some players develop strategies around to drain their opponents from being able to do anything, because a lot of abilities, especially good abilities, are either very high in what we call Soul Blast or Counterblast. And we'll get into this into what Soul Blasting is and what Soul is a little bit later. I just wanted to get the beginnings of this deck on the table first. So we got Silent Crows, we have Hayashikaze. I do want to play Shihabs. I don't know if I want to play Shihab. We'll think about it. This is actually pretty useful because it will gain power for every grade 1 or less rearguard that I have. So as long as I have a back row full of them, then I should have a 23k booster every turn. Static Crack, maybe not. Velo on Rush, no. And this probably not either. Static Crack, no. Okay, I think this is think this is all right for now. It's not great, but we don't have very many choices. Okay, so there is a specific number of triggers that you need in the deck, which is 16, but there is no regulation on the grade breakdown of your deck. So from grade 1 to grade 3, you can have any combination of those units. Generally, it's usually, well, back then, it was usually like 14, 12, 30, wait, 14, 12, and then like 9 or something like that. And then it would be very flexible from there. I don't know if I did my math right. Or yeah, 14 grade 1s, 12 grade 2s, or 10 to 12 grade 2s, 8 to 10 grade 3s, and then your starter. Yeah, 12 to 14, 10 to 12, 8 to 10, and then your starter. And then the other 16 cards of your deck would be the triggers. But because of standard moving our, giving us extra space in the deck with the advent of the ride deck, the numbers changed a little bit, and it became a little bit more flexible to play weird numbers of stuff, at least in standard. So right now we have this. Okay, so let's go over what this is. Alright, so the first thing we have here is the perfect guard. I forgot to mention what this does, but basically when you're guarding, you can place it in your guardian circle, and its ability requires you to discard a card from your hand, and it completely nullifies the attack that is being made against your unit. So, for example, if your opponent is attacking you, and they hit their over trigger, so they're swinging for 100 million. There are no cards in your hand that can physically reach that number except your perfect guard. So you can just toss the perfect guard down, toss a card away, and you are safe from the scary, 9-digit number. But yeah, it's really nice. It's really good to have a playset. Back when I first started playing, these were annoying as hell to pull, but now you can get them as commons in your starter deck. Granted, there are upgraded versions of this that have a little bit more leeway in terms of their ability. This one requires you to discard a card always, but the upgraded version of these, there are quite a few different versions of them. Here's one. Basically, it's the same thing, except when you play it, if you only have one card left or no cards in your hand left in your hand after playing this, you don't have to discard for its ability to activate. So it either saves you a card or it is activatable even if it's the only card in your hand. And yeah, that is the trade-off of getting perfect guards ready to go in the trial decks. But they did that a long time ago too in a previous format, and so at this point I'm kind of just chilling with it, and as long as you're playing smart enough, I guess, you can sort of mitigate a lot of the situations that you would find yourself in with just this in your hand. But yeah, that is our perfect guard, or our sentinel. Depending on who you ask, they'll tell you a different name. It's the same thing. But yeah, that is it for that. Next is this guy over here. So when it attacks or boosts, we Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets 5k until the end of that battle for each of your other grade 1 or less rear guards. So it doesn't count itself, so it can only go up to 18 if I don't have another grade 1 up in the front doing stuff. But still, it's an 18k booster for one Soul Blast. We don't use any Soul in the deck as it stands right now, outside of our cycler here. But so I think it's fine. Next is Silent Crow. I kind of already touched on, but basically his ability will play off of our Vanguard's ability whenever we retire something or spot remove something off of the field. Once per turn, we'll be able to flip a counterblast over and draw a card. And who doesn't like extra cards in their hand? I like extra cards in my hand. That's why we're going to try just 2 copies for now. Might fluctuate. I might run 3 and 3 or 2 and 4. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so far it's looking like this and this will be our main boosting units, because our other unit over here is when it is 6k, and when it's placed on rear, it gets an extra 5k until end of turn. So he's 11k for the first turn that you use him. You want to have him out early so that you can use his second ability, which lets you put him into your soul to automatically ride. And I'll get into turn structure and procedure once we get out of the deck list. So hopefully a lot of the jargon isn't scaring you away right now, but I promise that I will try to explain this as clearly as possible when we get to that point. And then of course, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them down below. So those are our grade 1s. Pretty good. We have boosters that go above their usual 8k power, and that will really help in terms of getting pressure, in terms of it'll help in terms of getting number pressure or power pressure throughout the game. Okay, the grade 2s are a lot more divisive in terms of what the heck I want to do. The only card that I know that I want to play is this, because this pairs really well with the consistency of this this Vanguard here. Hey, what's up, Liam? Just going over what do you call it? Just going over a deck that just recently came out. Greetings. But yeah, so this is where we are right now in terms of what I was able to find in my piles. This first card here, Cole Gaflan. Okay. So basically, when it is discarded during the ride phase of the turn, you can Soul Blast one, put it back to the bottom of the deck instead of discarding it to the graveyard and draw a card after. So it just gives us, just refunds us a card for a Soul Blast. And then the second ability is when it is placed on a rearguard circle, if you Persona Road the turn that it was placed, you can counterblast one and retire all of the rearguards in the same column as it. So we play Vanguard on a on a front row, back row field of 3, and then our opponent's field is parallel to that. So if I had my Vanguard in the middle, and then I called the Koflaga, his name I don't know how to pronounce, to the left, I'd retire everything that is in front of it. Or then conversely over here, it would be the same banana. But yeah, really really nice way to just field nuke people for fun. Next is this here, Desolate Spark Dragon. So when it attacks a Vanguard, if I Persona Road, is again another jargon that I will get to. We'll Soul Blast one, choose an opponent's rearguard, retire it, or basically that's the spot removal. Destroy it, and this unit gets an extra 5k until the end of that battle, and then your opponent chooses 3 normal units from their drop zone and binds them. So let's see, binding is sort of the equivalent in Yu-Gi-Oh to banishing, and the equivalent of exiling in Magic the Gathering. So you kind of put it in purgatory, and you just make it harder for your opponent to utilize those cards, because there are some decks in Vanguard that use the graveyard or the drop zone almost as like a second hand for utility. So just being able to one, retire for a resource that the deck can generate decently, and also getting the extra power is really nice. And then in certain matchups, you will also be able to get sort of secondary bonuses off of denying your opponent stuff in the drop zone. But yep, There should be 4 copies of this. I know I have 1 copy just like over here, so I'm not gonna go into it right now. But yeah, this should be at 4, and then the rest is kind of whatever, because I don't know what else to put in. For defensive purposes, I'm going to put this guy in for fun. When it intercepts, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets an extra 10k. So intercepting, I will get into in just a second when we go over turn structure. I'll go over all that in the battle phase. And then Blast Artillery Dragon. This guy does what? When this unit's attack hits, so as long as it hits something, I can retire it, draw a card, choose one of my opponent's rear guard, and retire it, or destroy it, or send it to the graveyard, whichever lingo helps you understand that sort of field motion is what that is. And then this last 2 copies, his name is Hungersaurus, and he gets an extra 5,000 just throughout the turn. But if my opponent's front row has anything but just the Vanguard on it, it cannot attack the Vanguard. So it'll either just be rampaging at rear guards, or just simply slapping a Vanguard for a number by itself. But those are the grade 2s. This is 2, 5, 9, 13. So we got 13. I'm not sure if we're in the right number range here, but I think we should be. And then the last things to look at. Oh wait, this should be over here. So we got 3 more copies of Triumph Dragon and 4 copies of Tribash here. I'll go over Triumph Dragon first. So its first ability, once per turn, you can counterblast 1. Search your deck for up to 1 copy of Triumph Dragon from it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck, and then your Vanguard gets an extra 10k until end of turn. So it's really nice because it sets you up for a bigger turn for your next turn going in, and it also does have a consistent power pump. So you're never going to be just 13k swinging, as long as you have a counterblast to do that. And then after that, you will have copies of Triumph Dragon to Persona Ride into, which we'll get into how to activate that in a little bit. And the next ability is when it attacks a Vanguard, you Energy Blast 4. So looking back at our energy counter here, every turn, unless you're going first, you get 3 energy. So if I'm going first, I'll start at 0, and then on my second turn I go to 3, and then 6, and then 9, and then it stops at 10. It doesn't go over. So, or at least I don't think it goes over. I have to double check the ruling on it. But yeah, every turn you'll get 3 energy, and this guy only needs 4. By the time you're able to activate this, if you're going first, let's see. So if you're going first, you get 0 for your grade 1 turn. You have 3 when you're grade 2. And then as you hit grade 3, you'll get another 3 energy. So you have 6 energy to start with. And so even if you swing with this once, you go from 6 down to 2 energy. And then the next turn you get another 3 energy, and you're back to 5, which lets you swing one more time without having to wait to get that energy back. So it's really nice, and cards that will be coming out in support of this dragon will give you even more energy. It's just that, yeah, we have to wait for the actual cards to get released first. But yeah, that's in like a week or 2, so not that much of a wait, if at all. But yeah, that is Triumph Dragon. Yeah, so it's Energy Blast 4, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. So this will proc Silent Crow, which will let us draw. And another thing to add to the pressure that is Triumph Dragon, we have Penetrate Dragon. When your Vanguard attacks, if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards on the field, you can put this card into your soul, and your Vanguard gets an extra critical. So Triumph Dragon gives himself an extra critical, so he's swinging for 2 damage, and then Tribash goes into the soul for another critical swing. An extra critical to that attack. So if that attack goes through, your opponent is half dead. at minimum. If you drive check and you get 2 critical triggers, you're doing 5 damage in 1 turn if the attack goes through unchecked. And yeah, that's kind of as far as I can go in terms of what I have available to me to build this deck right now. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. I need to count. So this is the main deck. Let's see, this has to be 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Shoot. Okay, 7, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, 28, 32, 34 plus 16. Yep, perfect. So we are at exactly 50. Okay, so let's get into turn structure, I guess, here. Okay, so the way that we start the game is by taking the grade 0 of our ride deck and flipping it face down. And when we start the game, it's just a thing. We turn it over to signify standing up, or standing the vanguard. And basically, at the beginning, we just stand up the vanguard. You start with 5 cards, and the way that vanguard mulligans work is you take whatever you don't want to keep in your hand, put it to the bottom of your deck, and draw the same amount. So I just put 4 cards back. I'm going to draw 4 cards again off the top, and then this is the hand that we're starting with, and then we shuffle the deck. Okay. So there are a couple of differences between going first and going second. So I will go first in the explanation. So beginning of turn, we draw a card, and then we go from draw phase to ride phase. So first things first is the stand phase, so restanding any units that are rested, drawing a card off the top of the deck, and then I'm going into ride phase. So while there are still cards in the ride deck, the way that we go about this is taking a card from our hand and discarding it. I'm going to discard Shihab to ride from grade 0 up to grade 1, and then abilities will activate from here. If I'm going first, then I don't get to attack, and I don't get an extra draw. So if I'm going second, I get an extra draw off of riding my first vanguard, and then I can also attack. So there are quite a few advantages to going second, especially if the play style of the deck, sort of necessitates the need for going second. Because there are decks that do prefer going second because of certain grade requirement walls that are detrimental to the overall power of the deck if you're going first. Okay, so if I'm going first, then that's it. If my opponent attacks me, which they are going to at least once, I'm just going to take it. So damage check, nothing. This would go to my damage zone. So now I have 1 damage. Oh yes, and now the soul. So anything that is under your current vanguard, so right now my current vanguard is this grade 1. This grade 0 is considered the soul, and this is a resource in itself. And I don't have anything. Oh shoot, okay, that's fine. I don't have anything that utilizes Soul Blast right now, but we will get to something that does later on. So the turn ends when you can't attack anymore. There's no main phase 2 or anything. You just attack, and when you're done attacking, your opponent goes, or the turn priority changes. So again, we go from stand and draw and discard to ride. I'm going to discard this grade 2 to ride my grade 2, and I also now get 3 energy to work with. Let me get this. That's kind of big, but yeah, I have 3 energy to work with now. Now I can go into my main phase. So we go from stand phase to draw phase, draw to ride phase, After the ride phase, we automatically go into the main phase where we are able to call support out and call rearguards to the field. So I'm going to call Shihab down here, and this at least gives me a lane. Then his ability activates and he gets an extra 5k. So now I can swing. My Vanguard is 10k, Shihab is 11, so that goes up to 21. I will drive check, revealing no trigger. This goes to my hand. And then once that turn is over, then, once my turn is over, it goes over to my opponent. And let's say they attack me twice. So I'll take 1 damage, no trigger, and then I'll guard a potential second attack for 25,000 using my heal trigger. And then it's my turn again. I'll stand and draw. I get a card that I figured I was going to get. And I'm going to activate this guy's ability. So he has a special ability that during my ride phase, if I if I'm going to ride, I can pay with putting this guy into the soul and riding instead of having to discard a card from my hand. So I'm going to do that. So it just goes into the soul, and then I get to ride for free basically. And what I'm going to do now is use my counterblast. So I'm going to activate his first ability. So once per turn, I can take a damage, flip it face down, and search for another copy of it and add it to my hand. There we go. The cut. the shuffle is terrible. The draws are terrible right now, but it's mostly just for explanation's sake. So I guess it's fine. So now I get to add this to hand. I shuffle the deck, and now I can do other stuff. I'm going to call a Desolate Spark Dragon and a Silent Crow into this lane over here. Oh yes, and I also gain another 3 energy. So now I'm at 6 energy, and this is able to attack on its own. And his own ability actually gives him an extra 10,000 power. So I'm going to use this little counter that I have here to remind me that it does. Okay. When sequencing your attacks, it does heavily depend on what your field is looking like, but generally, rule of thumb is you want to attack with your smaller units first before attacking with your bigger units, because if you attack with big units, your opponent takes it and they get a defensive trigger during their damage check. It can sometimes nullify the effectiveness or completely block out smaller laned attacks. Or if you're confident that that you'd be able to attack something else if a defensive trigger does come through, then you can sort of switch up the order. But in this case, I do want to attack with my Vanguard first because 1, it has crit pressure, and 2, Silent Crow can activate upon the retire effect of Triumph Dragon. So let's do this first. So I'm going to attack with Triumph Dragon. I'm going to activate its ability, pay 4 energy, so I'm from 6 down to 2. It gets an extra 5k and a critical. So he's swinging for 2 damage at 28,000, and I get my retire. I'm going to activate the Silent Crow. So again, flipping a card face down to counterblast, and I will draw a card and add that to my hand. It's really nice. In this case, I got to not draw a trigger, so gives me higher chances of checking a trigger through the actual drive checks. So let's start with our first, nothing, and second, of course it's nothing because the shuffle is bad, but that's sort of the way that, that's kind of just how it goes sometimes. And then we'll swing with this for 18. And then let's say I just take, well, I'll take 3 attacks. 1, 2, and 3, because my hand is really bad, and then I will use my Perfect Guard to save my butt from losing this turn. And now we are in a hypothetical turn 4. So we stand all of our units, and we draw. Okay, now here is where Persona Ride takes effect. So I'm going to take another copy of Triumph Dragon and ride over. So as soon as I ride over, I get a blanket passive ability that gives 10,000 power to all of my front row rear guard circles. So, and whatever units are on them. So I don't need to have something out here right away. So for example, like right now, I only have one unit out. If I were to call Hungersaurus over here, it would also get the blanket 10k power effect. And there are some decks that love to just call over stuff during the battle phase, or replace things during the battle phase. And during a Persona Ride turn, it gets really, really, really annoying to get over that. So I'm going to actually do. Let's see. I'm going to do this. It's almost the same thing, and then I'm going to call these two here, or maybe, let's see, maybe I'll call one here and then one here. So when calling units, if I were to call a unit here, I'm only able to move it within its own lane, so I can only move it up or down. Again, there are some cards that let you sort of walk your units across the field, but those are very specific to other nations, and this doesn't have it. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is when you Persona Ride, you do get to draw. You draw a card off the top of your deck, and from there, you're just really big. Next, I'm going to activate Triumph Dragon. I'll counterblast one. Search my deck for another copy of it, so that next turn I know that I'm going to be able to Persona Ride again. So we shuffle, 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 shuffle. Add this to hand, and then we start attacking things. So we're at 5 energy now. So I'm going to swing with, let's see. Let's swing with Desolate Spark, boosted by Silent Crow. So this is normally 18, but because we're Persona Riding, it's 28. And then we can activate Desolate Spark. Since I am Persona Riding this turn, I can Soul Blast one. So Soul Blasting is just taking a card from your soul and tossing it to the graveyard. And then we get to activate the abilities. So it gets an extra 5k. I get to retire something, and then I choose 3 cards from their drop zone or their graveyard, and I banish them, exile them, bind them, whichever word, again, helps you envision that movement. And then we can go to our Vanguard. We'll swing with the Vanguard, so that's 23. He searched for himself, so he gets an extra 10k for himself, so that's 23, 33. And then his Energy Blast ability, I'll go down from 5 to 1. So he gets an extra 5k, gets an extra critical. So he's swinging for 38 plus 8. I will Soul Blast one for this guy's ability. So when I'm boosting, he gets an extra 5k for each other grade 1 or less rear guard I have. So he gets an extra 10k as well. So we're swinging for a nice 21 plus 35 is 21 plus 35, 56k with an extra crit. So I'm swinging for 2 damage, and we'll go 1, nothing, and 2. We get a front trigger. So the front trigger basically helps me in the thinking department, because I don't really need to think anymore. Everything will get an extra 10k. Now the front trigger is limited to whatever is on the field at the time of activation. It's not the same blanket effect as the Persona Ride, just in case you were wondering. But now my Desolate Spark can swing for, we'll Soul Blast another one again, since it has the same ability. So I'll retire something. Retire. It gets an extra 5k. And I can bind 3 things from the drop zone, plus this 8. So we're at 18 plus 15 is 18 plus 15 is 33, plus the 10k off of our Persona Ride gets us to 43,000. And that is basically, and that I think is almost everything. And then we'll go into one more hypothetical turn here, so I can explain what the grade 2 grade ability is. So grade 2s have the ability to intercept. So intercepting just means taking the units from the front row rearguard circles and using them to guard, as the name intercepting suggests. And then they just add their shield value to the defensive power overall. And you can call cards from your hand while you are intercepting to supplement either way. So that is the grade 2 mechanic. There are cards that can intercept from the back row, but again, if it does have the ability, it will explicitly state the ability. So there isn't any sort of confusion as to whether or not something can do something. As long as there is an ability saying that it can, it does. And as long as there is no indication that it says that it can, then it cannot. And yeah, that is everything. The only thing that I haven't covered is 6 damage healing. Let's see if we do it. Oh, we do. Okay. So, so if I'm at 5 damage, and let's say I use all the cards in my hand to guard, and it still isn't enough for me to get through a turn. If I'm at 5, and I check a heal trigger, like I am doing right now, because I'm a sack, I am automatically able to heal, because 5 is the maximum amount of damage that any player can have and still be in the game with. Because as soon as you hit 6, you lose. Of course, there is one deck that goes against this rule, but unless you're playing against that deck, the general rule is as long as you're at 5 and you get a heal trigger, you are healing. So if I'm taking this as my 6th damage, I can activate the heal to take 1 damage from my damage zone, put it into my drop zone, which gets me back down to 4, and then this trigger transfers over into the damage zone. Yeah, like I said, there's only one deck that goes against the rule of needing 6 damage. There is a deck that lets you survive the game until 7 damage, but it has sort of been kicked out of meta contention because of other things that have entered the top decks. But talking about top decks, I don't think that any of the start trial decks will get to like tier 1, tier 0 ranking, but they are very good fundamentals decks for anyone that wants to just learn how to play the game. The price tag associated with the start deck really sucks. Granted, you get a deck box and you get sleeves, but in terms of practical usage for like in-game things, it's not great. But yeah, that's sort of all I have for tonight. This is just phase 1 of testing and building for this. This was just me taking what I could find within the hour and a half that I have been going. But yeah, I will be revisiting this deck. I'll be working on it a lot more. What I really want to work on of all of them is the Brantgate one, or the mech one, because I love me my fighting robots. But yeah, I will still be closely working on Triumph Dragon, just because I like guaranteed crits. So it really does open up avenues for a little creativity and flexibility in the triggers. I can have, instead of having critical triggers, I could probably just have more utility, or maybe even chuck more front triggers in, since I know that at least one of my attacks every single turn is going to have that extra pressure. But yeah, guys, thank you for spending your time with me. I really appreciate everyone that dropped by, and yeah, I hope that my explanations were all right and somewhat easy to understand. And yeah, I'll be streaming hopefully Friday night. I'm not sure yet. It'll really depend on how the next couple of days go. But yeah, that's it for me. Again, thank you so much for visiting this little outpost on the fringes of Planet Cray, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.